Hi, I'm Dave Litton and welcome to my short video on how to create your PRINCE2 Project Product Description in just 16 minutes flat. So the first question that you may think about is, why would you want to use a project product description in the first place? Well, the simple answer is, without one, you really are just wishing on a star and hoping that when eventually your project delivers its end product, that it's exactly what the customer really wanted, or indeed what your team actually delivered. So I'd like to ask you some questions first. Number one, can you write down a detailed description of the end product for your current project? You may think you can, in which case, why don't you do it? Then I want you to do the same for the team. Get them to individually write down a detailed description of the end product of the current project. I'd like to ask you, do you think their description would match yours? I think maybe not. You see, if their description is different to yours, is the end product of your plan what the customers expect? Because if your team's version is different to yours, maybe the team is not creating what you think your plan is asking. Maybe this is a wake-up call for you. So the benefits of writing a project description in the first place. This, of course, is the first step in developing the client's requirements. Without it, you can't understand exactly what they're after. You need to define clear scope limits, leading to the creation of the product breakdown structure. If your project product description is off-center, then so will your product breakdown structure be, and hence your project plan will be unrealistic and worse, will not give the customer what they're expecting. The project product description enables verification of the project scope. Let me remind you that the definition of scope is what is to be included and what is not. But it does more than that. The project product description helps scope management during the project because, of course, it acts as a baseline. As the project progresses, as I'll show you shortly, the project product description may need to be updated and refined, and at all times it's used as a baseline against which to manage the project. Of course, it acts as an important reference point for any potential change requests. The project product description clarifies what is important to enable a good understanding of the project's end product. Without a project product description, you may get many unpleasant surprises, misconceptions between the main stakeholders, and worse, conflicting or ambiguous expectations across the whole of the team. Now, the senior user role is responsible for project benefit realization, and that role is able to develop and define a high-level description of their project requirements. Can you see here what the senior user role will be doing is understanding what benefits are required by the organization and working backwards and defining exactly what the project end product must be in order to realize these benefits. So you can see the project product description acts as a vital link in terms of turning requirements into end products. The project product description is updated if necessary during the life of the project, as I'll show shortly, and helps ensure the end product focus remains throughout the entire project. It also helps to create the initial business case, because I've mentioned benefits already, and in defining exactly what the end product must be, this will help clarify and generate a realistic set of benefits for the business case. And of course, because you now know what the end product must be, it will give you a first initial idea of the required project resources. Maybe not in terms of headcount yet, because no planning has been done, but at least you know the knowledge, skills and experience, for example, of the team in order to create the end product. I want to remind you about the PRINCE2 product-based planning technique, in that it's there to define and analyze the products within your PRINCE2 project. And please remember, if you don't understand the scope of your end product, the plan will not work. Why? Because it will not be an accurate reflection of what your customers are expecting. Just to remind you, there are 4 steps within the product-based planning technique. The first one being what this video is about, writing or creating the project product description. Now, this step is needed for the project plan only. But don't forget there's 3 other steps within product-based planning, the second being creating the product breakdown structure, which you can't do effectively or efficiently or even get right without understanding what the end product is. Then you write product descriptions for the lower level products, and then finally take the product breakdown structure and show the sequence in which the products are to be created. This is called the product flow diagram. This is necessary for all levels of plan, including the project plan. Okay, so let's now get back to our project product description. First, I want to very quickly just remind you where the project product description plays a part within the PRINCE2 life cycle, if you will. It starts, of course, in the starting up a project process, which occurs pre-project, and here it will be the project manager liaising with the executive of the project board and the senior users to determine exactly what the project product description should be. And this forms part of the project brief. If you remember, one of the two main deliverables from the starting up a project process, the other one being the plan for the initiation stage. And it's these two main products which are put before the project board within the directing a project process to make a decision whether or not to proceed into the initiation stage. Let's assume they do. So now we'll look at the refinement of the project product description. Within the initiating a project process, this is where this can happen. As the project manager creates the project plan and further information is gathered, remember that the project brief has already been used and archived, so the refined project description forms part of the project plan, since every PRINCE2 plan needs to contain information on the products it will develop, and the project plan itself forms part of the project initiation documentation. And it's in the directing a project process where the decision is made whether or not to proceed to the delivery stages of the project. Here in the delivery stages, at the end of each end stage, the project product description, along of course with the rest of the documentation, is used as part of the decision-making criteria as to whether the project should proceed or not. The project manager, in managing a stage boundary in preparation for the end stage assessment, if necessary, update the project product description ready for putting before the project board so that they can make an informed choice. Don't forget that within any of the delivery stages, some of the products may be passed on to the user, in which case the project product description is used as an important reference to ensure that the acceptance criteria has been met and that the product can be handed over. Even if handover of some products at the end of each stage does not happen, it will certainly happen at the end of the project using the closing a project process. Again, as you can see, the project product description plays a key part. So the first section to be filled in is the title of the project product description, normally the name of the project. Let's invent one for the rest of this section and imagine that the project is about creating a new swimming pool for your villa. The next section is called the purpose, and this is the purpose that the project's product will fulfill, its function once it's handed over into operational life, and what the overall products of the project are, and also who will use them. In our example, to provide swimming and water leisure activities for the family and relatives within the villa grounds. Small children as well as adults will need to be catered for. In particular, safety aspects for bathing as well as entrance and exit to the water. So there's a small example capturing what the end product's function will be and who will use them. Next up is the composition. Now this is probably the most key part of the project product description because of course it shows a list of all of the products that are to be delivered by the project. And of course, as I've already mentioned, it therefore defines the product scope of the project. Get any of these products wrong or any of these products missing, then the product scope of the project will not be accurately reflected here. This list may also include key management products, such as third-party agreements, and I've included here planning permission, which is an external product, and a statement of work for the contractors that will build the swimming pool and the associated facilities around it. Next up is the derivation, and this is a section which is often misunderstood. Let me explain. First, you need to think about why this section is important. Well, it may be that the derived aspects are predecessors from a previous stage or project. In the case of the project product description, it may be a previous project or an existing project which is already ongoing, without which the current project cannot be started. It may also be a prerequisite. Another question to ask yourself in capturing the derivation is, what are the source products from which this product is derived? Without knowing or referring to them, there's a risk you may build the wrong products. Existing products, design specifications might be necessary, reports, the project mandate, remember that, and any requirement documents which we've received, possibly from third parties. The skills, knowledge and experience required to develop the product or reference to which areas should supply the development resources should also be included. So if it needs excavation into rock, you may need to hire a specialist piece of equipment, and this would want to be mentioned here. For our example, it might be planning permission, architectural design documents. How about catalogue product references? A lot of the parts of a swimming pool are available from suppliers. Any existing wiring or drainage pipes within the villa grounds, such as electricity cables and so on and so forth. Next up is the customer's quality expectations. This will be a description of the quality expected of the project's end product. It's the overall outputs of the project which you're looking at here, and any standards and processes that we need to apply to achieve that quality. Well, when it comes to a swimming pool, for example, there will be standards about providing mains electricity to power the pumps and so on and so forth. The customer's quality expectations will impact on every part of the product development and therefore will impact on the time and cost contained within the project plan. Can you start to see why this particular document is so important? The quality expectations are captured during discussions with the customer. Quite natural thing to do, and where possible, expectations should be prioritised, which are the most important ones. Again, it'll help you to come up with a realistic plan later on. Be careful to solicit all key stakeholders for their quality expectations, as it will be quite natural for them to be differences and therefore conflicts of opinion. It's important therefore to prioritise them, as ultimately they'll need to be agreed by the project board. Using the method mentioned in the PRINCE2 Manual of Prioritisation would be helpful here. It's called Moscow, as you may remember. It stands for must have, should have, could have, or won't have for now. For our particular example, it might be easy to clean the swimming pool and to maintain it, or low running costs, in which case we might mention what the actual level of running costs might be for, say, a typical month. The next piece and the final piece here is the acceptance criteria, absolutely crucial, as you might imagine. Now, most importantly, all acceptance criteria must be measurable. You see, the project product description will be used as a reference document against which to get the customer to accept the end product. And if it isn't measurable, it will be open to interpretation. You will have tolerances set. For example, if the swimming pool should be low cost, you might have a tolerance band within which you'd expect those costs to fall. I've mentioned the most obvious one here in terms of the size of the swimming pool. Maybe fitting it within the villa grounds, there is some variation that would be acceptable. A certain maximum size, because that might impact upon cost of ownership, and minimum, making sure that it's big enough for the whole family to use. The acceptance criteria method may be testing of the pump room or a simple measurement of the pool dimensions, as I've mentioned above. It may include how many gallons of water per hour the pump can manage, or it may be the level and size of contaminants the filter system can trap. The actual criteria will vary dependent upon the type of end product, of course. For signing off the acceptance criteria responsibilities, which need to be included, you may wish to consider who is going to own or operate the end product, as well as, say, the senior user role on the project, in case they're different. You would expect to have several acceptance criteria, and here's an example for acceptance criteria number 1. This would be repeated for as many criteria as you would determine. A brief description of what the criteria is, what measurements will need to be applied for it to be acceptable, and in terms of priority, here's the most important ones listed in priority order. Here's the tolerances, this will normally be plus or minus, and the method used for carrying out the acceptance criteria. It may be a simple visual check, or it may involve some specialist test equipment, and who's responsible for carrying out the acceptance criteria. So if you have 6 acceptance criteria, you'd have this table repeated 6 times. Now, acceptance criteria may include aspects such as ease of use, support maintenance, the appearance, functionality, project to operational costs, availability, reliability and security, and many more, I'm sure. Hopefully this will give you some good ideas about coming up with meaningful and agreeable acceptance criteria for your particular projects. Well, thanks for listening. I'm Dave Litton, and if you want to know more, just hop on over to my website, www.prince2primer.com.